Hey you, yeah you who clicked on this video. Thanks for giving our channel a shot. And if you will, please do us the honor of watching the video all the way through. Appreciate it. Now onto the video.
Is there a problem, people?
No problem at all, Mrs. Kennedy.
We were just discussing ideas of what to do with the new Prince Eric movie.
Put a chick in it, make her gay!
Hello fellow 8-bit heroes. Today we are going to be discussing the South Park episode, Joining the Panderverse. So before we get into it, I know that if you've been participating in any type of social media, whether that be on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, or any of the other social media platforms, you no doubt have been seeing the controversy surrounding this newest episode of South Park, which is kind of funny considering that there's any controversy surrounding an episode of South Park almost 30 years after its inception is kind of ridiculous, but hey, you know, whatever. Anyway, so let's get into this episode. Now, this episode is particularly of interest, especially to our audience here, because they are talking about a lot of different subjects that this channel has been talking about for quite some time. Subjects such as race swapping, gender swapping, just for the sake of doing it, for the sake of faux diversity, and how they really talk about it as pandering. And in particular, they are focusing on the Walt Disney Corporation in this regard, specifically Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger and such. Now, I don't want to act as if that's the only focus of the episode, but what we are going to talk about are basically what we enjoyed about the episode, what we felt the episode got right, and what I also felt the episode could have done better at. So let's get into it. So this episode starts off with Cartman having like a really bad dream about basically being replaced, him and his friends and everybody around him being replaced by diverse women who apparently have a need to mention the so-called patriarchy every chance they get. Now, this is interesting because, as we know, Cartman is a menace. He is a terrible person, terrible character. But this seems to be of a great concern to him because he feels as though there is, in fact, an alternate universe. And I love how this episode really pokes fun at not only the idea of race swapping and gender swapping, but it also pokes fun at the idea of using multiverses as a lazy plot device to basically reinvigorate mostly dead franchises. And we've seen this in so many different things, whether we're talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe using the multiverse so heavy-handedly in order to reinvigorate their universe. And I've often said that the mark of a dying story or a story that should have been put to rest long ago are two things. Either A, you use time travel where there never was one to begin with, or B, you use the multiverse. And in this particular case, they highlight the use of the multiverse. Sometimes, like when we're talking about Marvel, you might use both of them. So it's interesting just seeing this. And on that same note, we also have the secondary story with Randy Marsh basically trying to get his oven door fixed, which I found hilarious, mostly because they're trying to highlight the idea that Americans don't really know how to do anything outside of mostly tech jobs and things that they really specialize in without actually knowing how to do jobs that involve physical labor or knowing how to actually repair and fix physical items. Now, this storyline is also interesting and we're going to jump back into it, but let's go back to the Eric Cartman storyline as it is the more interesting of the stories. So basically what we have going on here is that there is in fact another mirror universe in which all the characters of South Park and indeed the entire world are diverse women of color, I guess. And so every person has a doppelganger, but their doppelganger is a woman of color. For instance, Stan is I want to say like a Latino woman. Kenny is a Asian woman. Kyle is an Indian woman, and Eric Cartman is a thick black woman. And I thought that this was very interesting because they don't really change the personalities of the characters. They rather keep the characters, but the voice acting is obviously different, with very few exceptions. And because of this, some of the jokes are almost funnier coming from these people because of how Eric speaks to the rest of the kids. You know how Eric is. He's always vulgar, always using profanity, always basically insulting people. And so those words coming out. And the funniest character to me, though, wasn't really Eric. I mean, yes, the black female version of Eric was funny, but what I thought was exceptionally funny was Kenny, because as we know, I've been watching South Park since it came out, and Kenny has always been kind of hard to understand. Like, if you're listening, you can obviously understand what he's saying, but having him being completely clear to the audience without you having to like really listen hard just was very interesting. But what was also interesting was that even though these are supposed to be like diverse woke versions of the South Park characters, because the personalities are the same for the most part, they're still pulling the same pranks, and it's just it lends itself to a level of humor that I really found was really refreshing. So I did laugh out loud a few times. Now, what makes this episode interesting is that they correlate a lot of things, and I know that South Park is satire. I'm fully aware of that. Like I said, I've been watching it since that came out. But I feel like in certain instances, they are almost trying to paint certain people in a more favorable light than they should be. For instance, Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy's character in this episode is supposed to be responsible for all of the woke, I don't even know if I want to use that, the really stupid decisions that have been made as far as Disney properties, whether that be Star Wars or other Disney properties, which I find interesting because, as we know, Kathleen Kennedy is not in charge of Disney proper, but more so in charge of Lucasfilm. She is I do believe she is the president of Lucasfilm. And so with that being said, her jurisdiction begins and ends at the Star Wars and Lucasfilm properties like Star Wars and Willow and Indiana Jones, and which they do mention Indiana Jones a few times, but they also in a weird way kind of obfuscate Bob Iger's role in everything. In particular, they almost make it seem like Kathleen Kennedy is the one that makes these decisions and everybody's kind of beholden to her in a very strange way. And I don't know how I really feel about that. Also, they also try to paint Kathleen Kennedy as her basic doubling down on very woke culture in the films. They try to blame that on fan response, but the reality of the situation is that Kathleen Kennedy is the one who, with the help of Bob Iger, by the way, really gaslit the fans, provoke the fans, and more importantly, trick George Lucas into giving or just selling his company to the Disney Corporation and then bastardizing everything that he came with. I mean, the Force is Female is not a response to fan backlash, but rather it was the first shot in the war for Star Wars and other pop culture properties. And so the idea that fan displeasure, or rather customer, and I think that's really a better way to put it, because, you know, we are fans, but more importantly, as far as the corpos are concerned, we are customers. Customer displeasure with their product precipitating some sort of creative backlash is kind of stupid, especially considering that the only people making money off of any of these interactions is the Disney Corporation, Kathleen Kennedy, and Lucasfilm. So I thought that was interesting. I did, however, really enjoy the idea that when they try to paint people that are displeased with certain characters and representation as racist, the pushback from Kyle and Stan in particular, especially when they try to mention like things like Miles Morales, which most people have no real problem with Miles Morales, because I mean, Miles Morales is not Peter Parker. Miles Morales is Miles Morales. So he has his own character within the Spider-Man mythos, therefore not really being a race swapped character, but his own character in his own right. And I thought that was a very interesting pushback. But getting off to another part that I really found less than entertaining, the Randy Marsh storyline, where basically, of course, Randy can never take accountability for anything. So him basically trying to blame everyone for the reason that he doesn't know how to fix anything is interesting, especially with the handymen around town basically becoming millionaires and then billionaires based on the idea that since nobody can fix anything, they have become invaluable, especially with the creation of AI taking all of the other really more cushy jobs that most of the denizens of South Park have, including but not limited to lawyers, therapists, and things of the like. Anything that would, from their words, anything that doesn't require hands. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But then it devolves into kind of this play at illegal immigrants do the jobs that regular Americans just don't want to do, and I really don't, we don't try to get political on this channel, but I really don't like that argument, especially from someone that, I'm a regular citizen. I'm a regular American. So I know that this isn't really a true statement. I know that there are people that are more than willing to do a lot of these more hands-on jobs, these more skilled labor jobs. It's just that they don't have the opportunity because there's a labor force in this country that is willing to work in substandard conditions for substandard pay. And unfortunately, those happen to be illegal immigrants from the third world, or in some cases, what the current administration would call refugees. So with that being said, I felt like that kind of missed the mark as well. But again, you can't really expect perfection, especially not out of Hollywood. But so, that was just one of the things. But, one of the things that I really found interesting for the whole episode really is the idea that they keep calling what the alternate universe South Park characters, whenever they refer to white people as, some sort of derogatory slur, like honky or whitey or whatever, they call it out for being racist. And I find that very interesting. But they also talk about the idea that, to them, black people or people of color can't be racist against white people. And, it doesn't really tell you one way or the other to think, but kind of just leaves it out there. And I thought that was really interesting. But the episode itself, like I said, it's sure to make a lot of people mad. I found it funny. For the most part, I don't really think that it was really offensive in any real way. It's more so the South Park people kind of catching up to what the YouTube creators and other people have really been saying for years, myself included. And, just the fact that South Park kind of represents the normie perspective. And now that normies are becoming self-aware and the NPCs are starting to become self-aware, now South Park decides to say something and really get caught up in the mix. Kind of when the culture war is on the decline, especially just because we know that these really PC and cultural endeavors, these faux diverse initiatives have cost companies billions of dollars. And so now it's safe to say something. It's kind of like when Jon Stewart started talking about the origin of the East Asian virus of unknown origin. You know what I mean? It was safe to say at that point. And so, that's, again, when you see outlets like or personalities like Jon Stewart or Trey Parker and Matt Stone of South Park really weighing in and chiming in when it's safe, not when things are happening and it's really more poignant to say so. So, again, this was a fun episode, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of pennies in the twist. I'm sure Kathleen Kennedy is none too pleased about this episode of South Park. But, I enjoyed it, and I'm sure that most of the audience enjoyed it. It probably made Trey Parker and Matt Stone a good amount of money. And I think that this is not the only episode that they will be dealing with the quote-unquote Panderverse. So we'll see what happens. But you guys let me know what you thought of this episode, whether or not you thought it was entertaining and funny, or whether or not you feel like this kind of missed the boat. So sound off in the comments section below, and we'll see you on the next one. 8-Bit Heroes out. Peace. If you'd like to give a shout out on the channel, then hit that like button, maybe share it with a couple of friends, and do us the biggest honor of all, and subscribe to the channel so you can join the 8-Bit Heroes family. And while you're at it, hit that bell icon so you can be notified when our new videos come out.